Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're diving into something that literally happens millions of times a day, but almost never gets the strategic spotlight it deserves. We're talking about the order-to-pay, or O2P, workflow. It's kind of like a highly choreographed, high-stakes, 15-step corporate relay race. Let's look at how the gears actually turn. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to take a pretty dense 15-step procedure and break it down into 5 clear phases. Initiating the flow, ironing out the details, generating the purchase order, financials and follow-up, and finally, delivery and final documentation. Let's get right into it. What we're looking at here is the actual master document we'll be decoding today. It's this beautifully complex matrix that captures literally every minute detail of the order lifecycle. You've got step codes, action descriptions, the specific doer assigned to the task, and, most importantly, the rigid timelines they are held to. I mean, this spreadsheet is the actual heartbeat of the procurement process we are exploring.
Now, before we start the clock, let's quickly define our key players, because you're going to hear these acronyms a lot. First up is the BDE, or Business Development Executive. You can think of the BDE as the initiator. They are right out there on the front lines, identifying the need and, well, sparking this entire 15-step process into existence. Next up, we have the PO, or Purchase Order. In this specific framework, getting that PO generated is the ultimate goal of the entire first half of the workflow. It's the official line in the sand, the legally binding commitment sent to the supplier. Basically, everything builds up to its creation and dispatch.
And finally, there's SOHUM. You know how every modern business has an internal digital brain, right? Like an ERP where things are officially logged? Well, in our source material, that system is called SOHAM. This is where the BDE's requirements and the final POs live and breathe digitally.
All right, Section 1, Initiating the O2P Flow, the Spark.
So, we kick things off with the first 3 critical steps, and let me tell you, this is a rapid-fire handoff. Step 1 starts with the BDE creating the requisition sheet with all the specs. Then, they instantly pass the baton to the purchase executive for Step 2, who has to figure out the price, packing details, and the minimum order quantity on a request for quotation. After that, the baton goes right back to the BDE for Step 3, who sends the confirmed pro forma invoice, the PI, to the internal product tracking team, known here as PDM. It's a highly active, incredibly collaborative kickoff.
But here is the really crucial point, the absolute urgency. The BDE doesn't have days to sit around and ponder this. No way. They have exactly 6 hours from the initial timestamp to generate that first requisition sheet. The clock starts ticking the literal second the requirement is known, setting a really fast-paced tone for the rest of the workflow.
Moving right along to Section 2, Ironing out the details, the grind.
Now look at this rapid-fire sequence of sub-steps clustered entirely around Step 2. The purchase executive and the creative team are suddenly juggling multiple, massive tasks all at once. Step 2.1 is getting the artwork finalized. 2.2 is getting the legal agreement signed. 2.3 is confirming technical printing charges like plate or PP charges. And 2.4 is applying for stuffing permissions. And what's honestly amazing about this is that the source document mandates all this be done within a razor-thin 1 to 2 day window. Some things like confirming plate charges have to be done in just 2 hours. Seriously, 2 hours.
Once those grueling micro details are finally ironed out, we hit Steps 4, 5, and 6. The BD, along with a designated team member, noted in our source as Manisha, logs the formal requirement into SOHUM. Within a day, the purchase executive hands all these finalized details over to the internal preparations team, noted here as Pandit, and their job? To take all this raw data and prepare the actual purchase order back inside the SOHUM system.
Which brings us to Section 3, Generating the Purchase Order, the Commitment.
Now this is where the red tape really matters. Step 7 requires the purchase order to be signed not just by one person, but by the BDE, the purchase executive, the executive assistant, and the managing director. And as we all know, gathering that many executive signatures takes time, about 3 days in this particular workflow. But once it's signed, Step 8 dictates the PO is dispatched to the supplier within just 3 hours. Finally, Step 9 solidifies the whole deal. Within 2 days of sending the PO, the advance payment actually changes hands. At this point, the company is officially on the hook.
And now we enter Section 4, Financials, and follow up, the long wait. 45. That staggering number represents the amount of days it takes from Step 8, sending the PO, to actually receiving physical samples and pictures from the supplier in Step 12.
It's kind of crazy, right? After stressing over 2-hour and 6-hour deadlines, the system suddenly demands a month and a half of absolute patience.
But given that vast gap between day 0 and day 45, the purchase executive isn't just, kicking back and resting. Not at all. They are executing step 10, which requires planned weekly follow-ups with the supplier. They have to constantly manage that relationship and ensure the production stays precisely on track across that really long expanse of time. This specific sequence perfectly outlines that communication loop. You have your step 10 weekly follow-ups, and eventually that yields step 11, where the dispatch date is finally received from the supplier, which is usually noted as 10 days from a planned follow-up. And then finally, that glorious step 12 arrives. 45 days later, the physical samples and pictures of the products are ready and shared back with the BDE who started this whole entire process.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Delivery and Final Documentation, the resolution.
So once the BDE approves those samples, the pace immediately snaps back to lightning fast. Step 13, the final balance payment is made to the supplier within 2 days utilizing a payment list prepared internally. Step 14, the actual physical goods are dispatched by the supplier within another 2 days. And finally, step 15, within mere hours of the goods dispatching, the certificate of analysis, the invoice, and all those final documents are routed by the purchase executive to the PTM tracking team we mentioned earlier. The physical and digital loops are officially closed. The whole shebang is done.
Before we wrap up today's explainer, I want to point out something really interesting. If you isolate the doer column from the master document, it reveals a super clear picture. The BDE initiates the spark at the very beginning, and they step back in to review the samples at the end. But the purchase executive, wow, they carry the overwhelming weight of executing the end-to-end grind. I mean, from finalizing plate charges in 2 hours, to managing a 45-day vendor relationship, to chasing down managing director signatures, the purchase executive is, without a doubt, the undisputed engine of the O2P workflow.
As we wrap up, I really want to leave you with a thought to ponder. We've just navigated a highly structured, distinctly manual 15-step process filled with hyper-specific handoffs. So in a modern world of instant digital transactions and AI, is a rigid framework like this the absolute peak of corporate protection, ensuring every single dollar and detail is verified? Or is it a bottleneck that is completely ripe for massive automation? Think about how your own organization handles these ticking clocks. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and keep questioning how the gears turn.